Most men think compliments are simple. Say something nice, and attraction should happen. But real psychology tells a very different story. The truth is uncomfortable. Most compliments fail, not because the words are wrong, but because the timing is wrong. The same compliment can create attraction, or instantly kill the moment. Strange, right? That's why understanding compliments that only work at the right time can completely change how people see you. In fact, once you understand this idea, you start noticing subtle moments that most men miss completely. Moments that quietly change the entire dynamic of a conversation. And today, we're going to explore exactly how that works. But before we dive in, if you're a guy who wants to understand psychology, attraction, and social intelligence on a deeper level, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. We're building a community of men who want to become smarter in relationships, and our current goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers. Join us and be part of it. Topic 1. The hidden psychology of compliments, why most men use them wrong. Most men believe compliments work in a very simple way. They think all they need to do is say something nice, something polite, something that sounds kind, that should automatically create attraction. But human psychology rarely works like that. In fact, sometimes the exact opposite happens. A compliment said at the wrong moment can feel forced, awkward, or even predictable. And the funny thing is that even when the intention is good, that kind of compliment ends up losing all of its impact. A mentor who studies human behavior once explained this in a very simple way. It's not the compliment that creates connection. It's the emotional moment in which the compliment appears. Think of it like music in a movie. Same song can feel incredible in the right scene, completely out of place in another. Relationships work in a similar way. A compliment about a woman's personality, for example, can be far more powerful after an interesting conversation than during the first few seconds of meeting her. Many men, without realizing it, use compliments like a kind of social shortcut. It's almost like they're thinking, if I say enough nice things, she'll like me. But people can easily sense when a compliment is being used like that. That's why a simple, "you're beautiful" sometimes barely registers, while a much simpler comment said at the right moment can have a much bigger impact. And once someone starts understanding this dynamic, a small shift in timing can completely change how their words are perceived. But here's the interesting part that almost nobody talks about. There are certain compliments that work almost like magnets, as long as they appear at the right moment in the interaction. In the wrong context, they sound ordinary. In the right context, they create curiosity, connection, and even surprise. And this is where the conversation starts getting really interesting, because there are specific types of compliments that, when used at the right moment, trigger a completely different reaction. But before we explore what those compliments are, there's an important question most men never stop to ask. Why does timing change the way a woman interprets the exact same words? Topic 2. Why timing changes everything in attraction. There's something interesting about the human mind that most men don't fully understand. People rarely react only to the words themselves. They react to the emotional moment in which those words appear. It's like when someone tells a joke. The same joke can be hilarious in one situation and completely flat in another. Compliments work the exact same way. The brain connects the compliment to the emotional experience happening in that moment, and that changes the entire impact of the message. Imagine a simple situation. A man meets a woman and, within the first few seconds, says, "You seem really interesting." It might sound polite, but there's no emotional foundation there. Now imagine another scenario. They talk for a few minutes. She tells a funny story, shares an unusual opinion, or shows a sense of humor, and then he says calmly, "Okay, now I get it. You're actually really interesting." The words are almost identical, but the emotional experience is completely different. Someone who's good at reading human behavior starts noticing these small moments during a conversation. Those brief seconds when the other person reveals something about themselves, an idea, a passion, a unique way of seeing the world.
Absolutely.
When a compliment becomes powerful.
Yes.
Because it no longer feels like an attempt to impress. It feels like genuine recognition. And when someone feels truly recognized, something interesting happens. Connection starts growing almost effortlessly. In practice, this means the real secret is rarely about complimenting appearance or using clever lines. Most of the time, the strongest compliments come from noticing small details that most people ignore. Maybe it's the way she explains an idea, the way she reacts to a situation, or even the energy she brings when she feels comfortable. Moments like these create natural opportunities for compliments that feel authentic, spontaneous, almost inevitable. And that's exactly why certain types of compliments work surprisingly well when they appear at the right moment. Not because they're magical, but because they recognize something deeper than appearance. And the first one usually appears at a very specific moment in the conversation, typically when she reveals something about the way she thinks. Compliment number 1, I like the way you think. There's a type of compliment that tends to have a quietly powerful effect in conversations, especially when it shows up at the right moment. It's not about appearance. It's not about anything superficial. It's something much rarer these days, recognizing the way someone thinks. When a man calmly says, I like the way you think, he's doing something most people don't do. He's validating her mind, not just her presence. This kind of compliment works best when a woman shares an interesting opinion, a different perspective, or a clever way of looking at something. Imagine that during a conversation, she explains why she prefers traveling alone, or talks about how she solved a complicated problem at work. Instead of just changing the subject or giving a generic reply, the man pauses for a second and says, You know what? I like the way you think. Simple, direct, surprisingly powerful. The psychology behind this is interesting. Most people are used to receiving compliments about appearance. You look beautiful. Nice dress. Pretty smile. And while those compliments aren't necessarily bad, they're extremely common. When someone acknowledges the way she thinks, something different happens. The brain interprets that as deeper attention. It's almost like she's being seen beyond the surface. Another important detail is timing. This compliment doesn't work if it appears out of nowhere. But when it comes right after she shares an idea or a personal story, it creates a small emotional pause in the conversation. That moment when she realizes the other person was actually paying attention, and interestingly enough, that pause often increases the interest in the interaction. But there's an even more intriguing detail here. Sometimes when someone notices something unique about the way a woman thinks or behaves, a curious feeling appears, almost like she's different from most people he's met. And when that perception shows up at the right moment, there's another compliment that can trigger an even more intriguing reaction. Compliment number 2, you're different from most people. There's a type of compliment that taps into something very specific in the human mind, the desire to feel unique. Deep down, almost everyone likes feeling like they're not just another face in the crowd. And that's exactly why when someone says, you're different from most people, the impact can be much stronger than it first appears. But of course, it only works when it comes up naturally, after something genuinely different appears in the conversation. Imagine that during a conversation she shares an unexpected perspective about relationships, career, or even how she sees life. While most people might give predictable answers, she brings a perspective that feels personal and authentic. At that moment, instead of just agreeing or moving on, the man pauses for a second and says calmly, You know, you're different from most people, not like a rehearsed line, more like a genuine observation. What's interesting is that this kind of compliment activates something psychologists call identity curiosity. When someone hears they're different, a small internal question appears. Different how? That curiosity naturally keeps the conversation going in a much more engaging way. Sometimes she'll ask what he meant. Other times she'll smile, shift her posture slightly, and the energy of the conversation changes, almost without anyone noticing when it happened. Now here's an important detail many men overlook. This compliment works best when it's connected to something specific she showed. Maybe it's how she analyzes a problem, how she handles difficult situations, or the calm way she deals with pressure. When a compliment comes from a real observation, it feels authentic. And authenticity is something people rarely ignore. As the conversation continues, another interesting moment sometimes appears. Those moments when someone reveals emotional maturity or an unexpected ability to deal with life's challenges, and when someone notices that quality, there's a simple compliment that can have a surprisingly strong effect. Compliment number 3, you handle things really well. There's a very specific moment in conversations when people reveal something that goes far beyond appearance or charm. It's when they talk about a difficult situation, explain how they handled a problem, or share how they dealt with something complicated in their life. And in those moments, there's an opportunity that many men completely miss. Instead of focusing only on the story itself, someone who's paying attention notices how she handled it. And that's where a simple but powerful compliment appears. You handle things really well. This kind of comment touches something deeper: emotional competence. Imagine that during a conversation she talks about dealing with a conflict at work, or having to make a difficult decision in a past relationship. Most people simply listen and move on. But when someone says something like, "Honestly, you handled that really well," the dynamic changes. Suddenly she realizes the other person isn't just hearing the story, he's recognizing the maturity behind it. What's interesting is that this kind of compliment instantly creates a sense of respect. Unlike superficial compliments, it shows that the man values something rarer: emotional balance, problem-solving ability, the capacity to stay calm when things get complicated. And interestingly enough, these qualities are often far more attractive than many people realize. After all, everyone likes feeling like their choices and actions reflect something positive about who they are. In practice, this compliment works best when it appears naturally, right after she finishes sharing something meaningful. It doesn't need to be dramatic or exaggerated. That must have been tough. But you handled it really well, sometimes paired with a small smile or a brief pause that shows it was said sincerely. Little details like that can turn a simple sentence into something memorable. And interestingly, the longer the conversation continues, the more opportunities appear to notice other qualities that usually go unnoticed. Sometimes it's an unexpected talent, a curious skill, or even an achievement she mentions almost casually. And when that happens, there's another type of compliment that can create a very interesting effect. Compliment number 4, that's actually impressive. Sometimes during a conversation, someone casually mentions a skill or accomplishment like it's no big deal. Maybe she taught herself a language, runs marathons, or started a small project. When you respond with, "That's actually impressive," you give unexpected validation. It feels spontaneous and genuine, not like automatic flattery. That kind of reaction shows you're truly paying attention, which naturally deepens the conversation. Compliment number 5. You have great energy. Sometimes what stands out about someone isn't what they say, but the energy they bring into the room. Maybe she laughs easily, tells great stories, or simply makes the conversation feel lighter. Saying you have great energy recognizes the emotional impact of her presence. And because people rarely receive this type of compliment, it often feels surprisingly meaningful. Compliment number 6. I didn't expect that from you. Conversations often get interesting when someone reveals an unexpected side of their personality. Maybe she seems quiet at first but shares an adventurous story, or she appears serious but suddenly shows a great sense of humor. Saying "I didn't expect that from you" highlights that positive surprise and makes the moment feel like a genuine discovery. Compliment number 7. You're fun to talk to. Sometimes a conversation just starts flowing naturally. The stories connect, the laughter comes easily, and time passes quickly. In that moment, saying you're fun to talk to validates the connection both people are already feeling, simple, authentic, and reinforces the positive dynamic between you. Compliment number 8. You're very observant. Some people have a sharp ability to notice details that others miss. When someone picks up on subtle things in the environment or in the conversation, saying you're very observant acknowledges their awareness and social intelligence. Because this quality is rarely complimented, it often leaves a strong impression. Compliment number 9. That was bold. Sometimes a person makes a daring joke, asks a direct question, or does something unexpected in a conversation. Recognizing that moment with "that was bold" turns a potentially awkward moment into a playful one. It acknowledges confidence and creates a lighter, more spontaneous interaction. Compliment number 10. You have a calm confidence. There's a type of confidence that doesn't need to be loud or showy. It's the quiet self-assurance of someone who feels comfortable with who they are. Saying you have a calm confidence recognizes a deeper personality trait, which makes the compliment feel more meaningful than a typical surface-level remark. The real power of compliments isn't just in the words, it's in the observation behind them. When a compliment comes from genuinely noticing something about the other person, it feels authentic rather than rehearsed. People don't connect with words alone. They connect with the feeling of being truly seen. Conclusion: now pause for a moment and think about all the interactions you've had in your life. How many times did a compliment come out almost automatically? Something polite, something common, but something that simply passed unnoticed. The truth is that most men never learn this. It's not the words that create impact, it's the perception behind them. When you start paying attention to the small things, the way someone thinks, reacts, expresses themselves, your compliments stop sounding like rehearsed lines and start sounding like something much rarer. Genuine attention. And now I want to hear from you. Which one of these compliments do you think would change the dynamic of a conversation the most? Is there one you've used before without even realizing it? Or one you never imagined saying before watching this video? Let me know in the comments. These discussions always reveal some really interesting experiences. And if you want to keep learning about psychology, human behavior, and relationship dynamics, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss the upcoming videos where we'll go even deeper into these topics.